Good morning, everyone. Hello and welcome to another Hello Culture in Conversation as part of BBC Digital Cities Virtual. Another in our series of events over the past few months as part of the Hello Culture experience. We've been exploring the ways in which artists continue to tell stories and create work during lockdown. And what better on this dismal and slightly foggy January morning? At least it is where I am. If you're from further afield or if you're in sunnier climes, do let us know in the chat. But we're really pleased to be exploring the work of the fabulously gifted Gateau Chocolat, a leading Black and LGBTQ+ performer with a penchant for lycra and fabulous outfits. I have slightly tried to fabulous myself up this morning and have made an effort. His work spans many art forms: drag, cabaret, opera, musical theatre and live art, and all of them at the highest level. So hello and welcome, Gateau. It's fabulous to have you here.
Hello, thank you so much for having me. I'm very excited to be here.
Right, well, before a big reveal. Before we get to delve into the world of Gateau, dive into that Gateau, just a couple of bits, sorry about that, a couple of bits of info. Those of you who are Hello Culture regulars will know that we have closed captions available. And if you're new, you can click on the CC button at the bottom of the screen. There you have an option to view the full transcript, as well as recording, as well as watch a scrolling subtitle. And just to let you know, we will be recording the session. So any of your friends who've missed this, or if you want to watch it again, keep your eyes open on the Hello Culture website, where it will be available in due course. And our previous Hello Culture digital events are starting to be available there online too. Just to say that later on, we're going to hear from Gateau. How this morning is going to go. We're going to speak together for about half an hour or so, a bit more, and then you'll be able to put your questions to Gateau. You'll see there's the question option in the chat, and we'll do our best to get through as many of them as possible. A big thanks to curator of this program, Lara, and producer Shirley. They'll be monitoring the chat, marshalling the questions to put through to me at the end. So without further ado, let's move to the world of Gateau Chocolat. Thanks so much for joining us.
Oh my God, thank you. Thank you.
Fabulous to have you here. And there's lots to get into.
Yes.
It's been such a strange year. In fact, for those of people who've known Hello Culture for a while, this day last year, we were presenting a live event in Bristol, one of the last that we did. I think we did one more a couple of weeks later in Manchester. And one thing that really struck me, I've been thinking about all weekend, was that when you talked about that the essence of drag is the ability to meet the moment.
Yeah.
So for a performer whose very essence is the live experience, noticing the glance, the look, the dodgy jumper, whatever it is in the audience that's going on, it must have been particularly strange. And I'll ask you a question about that in a moment. But before we hear about this year and what it's been like to you, I thought it would be good to just sort of establish a baseline and get to see you in action pre-COVID.
Okay, perfect.
We're going to play a little clip before everything went crazy. We're going to this beautiful clip of you singing a Bjork song, Anchor, from Icons. Take it away, Gareth. Thank you.
Underneath all currents and my anchor, 'cause this is where I'm staying This is my home.
Yes, somewhat prescient there. This is where I'm staying. This is my home.
Oh my
And
God,
of course, lockdown
Yes.
really changed all that. So
Really.
where were you as the sort of increasing restrictions began to unfold, and what
The
happened?
clip you've just watched was shot for the Beeb for a show called The Way Out in January, and I just arrived back from New York doing some work on a show called Grey Arias, which I was making with an American friend of mine called Adrian Truscott. And that's where I was when the pandemic hit and kind of all the borders started shutting. We were a week away from tech, having made the show, written the script, and it was going to be part of Melbourne Comedy Festival at the Malthouse. And on the Friday, we did a first showing. The first time we showed it to the public, well, not the public, anyone outside of the creation of the piece.
Yeah.
And that Friday, literally half an hour after our showing, the Prime Minister came on and said that borders were going to be closing, these are going to be the restrictions, and the Melbourne Comedy Festival was cancelled. So it was really quite an extraordinary thing to go into survival mode, because my friend had to get to America, I had to get back home, and my friends were rushing back from Canada and France back into Australia, because unlike our lockdown, their lockdown includes a mandated hotel quarantine stay for 14 days. It was really extraordinary. Mid-March, flying home in what felt like a film set. Everyone was wearing masks. Everyone was wiping everything.
Like the opening sequence of Lost Horizon when they're all trying to get out.
Absolutely. It was very. The action was kind of adrenaline fueled. You just had to get home and get safe. And then when I got home, a week after I got home, I had enough space to start to decipher and process the implications of everything that the pandemic meant. Because I described it as toppling dominoes. At that point, I could see the end. I was like, okay, Melbourne Comedy has been cancelled. Pandora will still happen in April. Then that got cancelled. Then Bayreuth will still happen in June. Then that got cancelled. And then, so it felt like the dominoes changed direction, and then I could only hear them. I couldn't see them. So many things started to manifest as an artist who works in live theatre in terms of poor mental health and how do I meet the moment and all of that.
And as you say, so and at that point, I tried to avoid the use of the word unprecedented because it was bandied about that entire time, but sometimes it's hard to think of a different. We had no roadmap, no model for this. And the idea that, as we have now, effectively we've had pretty much a year, give or take a few weeks, of no theatre, certainly of not live theatre or performance as we know it. At that point would have been was kind of unthinkable, wasn't it? As you say, I think we were. So, and you've still got this urge to make. You've still got this urge to kind of perform or create. So.
I think.
So what did that result in?
Well, a lot of people, our id, our identity is absolutely intrinsically linked to performance. That is a good thing, a bad thing, a destructive thing, a dysfunctional thing, a blessing, a curse. It's how we have many, many conversations. And a lot of self-employed performers that I know, just literally jump from treadmill to treadmill. So they're either working in a show or they're making a show or rehearsing a show. And that's just how it was. So the pandemic, for the first time in a long time for me, forced me to stop. And it was difficult not having any agency in stopping. Like there was it wasn't an injury, it wasn't a cancellation, it was the world saying you've got to stop. It
wasn't a pre-planned sabbatical.
It wasn't a pre-planned sabbatical. Everyone had to stop. And stopping means that the way that is like a pressure cooker.
Yeah.
The way that performers work is when you're on stage, you get to release that steam. And the stop is all the pressure cooker still building with no way to have those conversations. And actually quite interesting is Great Arias was navigating some incredibly difficult conversation, from gender identity to race to sexual assault to politics. Covered a lot. So part of the process of making Great Arias was actually, it was important to have those conversations on stage, because otherwise,
it's like you raised a load of issues that didn't quite get dissipated, expiated, sorted by the completion of performance. It was sort of, the conversation was frustrated.
Absolutely. Yeah. So that was, and I didn't realize just how difficult and toxic that was going to be until I fell into a really sort of whirlpool of depression, because I was just carrying all this information and material that we mined as a conversation to have with audiences, and there was no way to
have that conversation,
to have those conversations.
Yeah.
Well, there was a little bit. I kind of how that tended to manifest itself was I decided to make my Twitter feed about timeline cleanses, I called them, just to get people distracted, to laugh. And on my Facebook page, which is kind of more long form, I was having conversations about mental health, about exercise, about plants. And I fostered a really wonderful relationship. I've always had a good relationship with my Facebook followers, but it's deepened and grown and blossomed during lockdown.
Yeah, we'll talk about your community and your plants shortly. But at one point during lockdown, then you ended up in the bathroom. Let's put it
correct.
And so let's see a clip, and let's share a clip of that, and then we'll talk about the response and how that worked.
Sure.
So, Gareth, if you can line that up for us.
Look at the stuff, isn't it? Wouldn't you think mine? Wouldn't you think I'm a girl who has everything? Look at the stroll, treasures untold. How many wonders can one scatter hold? Looking around, you will say, sure, she got everything. I got gadgets and gizmos aplenty.
Oh my God.
It's galore. You want thinking about Babs? Girl, I got 20.
Yes, I was muted. I'm glad you were laughing, because I was laughing massively at that. So, this was on Facebook Live, part of the Let Them Eat Cake series. What was the response? How did that go down? It is just gorgeous.
That is so silly. That is so silly. And I think, and part of being, oh my God, so silly. Part of being on stage is getting to exercise the clown and share all of this stupidness and silliness with people. So I ended up in a bathroom in Melbourne. This was, I believe, number 2 in the series, because I think at the top of the lockdown, a lot of people who were and who are self-employed, whose literal subsistence and survival depends on them working, went to like, if I'm not working, I've got no earnings, I've got nothing. So and you kind of go into panic mode in terms of what's the next bit of income, where's it going to come from? In that sort of state, I hurriedly did a show in the bathroom, and I hadn't planned anything. I spoke to my producer, who was in Adelaide at the time. I was like, Jared, can you set up a PayPal? Could you tell people? And so he was in the comments going, this is the PayPal. Anyway, so people were very, and I just kept going, if you want to donate anything, please do. And I woke up the next day, and the support was really humbling, really so extraordinary that I made a video from bed the next day going, guys, I'm so grateful and so humbled. But it was, I think the first show, I got to about 800 or between 700 and 800 pounds.
Wow.
So I was so moved by it, but I kept thinking about others in my industry who wouldn't have this platform. So I made a video the next day saying that I would create a bursary for 8 people, of £50 each for our NHS workers and for artists who just need it to spend on anything, get yourself a bottle of wine and drink yourself to distraction so you don't think about it. A nurse, there was a nurse who took the money for her walk-in center. There was an artist who took the money for herself and then 2 months later paid it back and said I should pay it forward. So people really kind of came out in support, and I was really kind of humbled and grateful.
But also, it's probably, I mean, as you say, that silliness, at the time, there wasn't a lot of silliness about, and just that few moments of that, and just making, that's kind of a real gift. And of course, particularly after that, there was there was a spike, and then we kind of started to accommodate however you want to take it. You go through your Kubler-Ross stages of grieving for your previous life to get to a form of acceptance.
Yes.
And so then as the reset started to happen, some other working opportunities came about.
Yeah.
So do you just want to just maybe take us through some of the opportunities that started to come your after we'd gotten over that sort of initial?
Sure. So I think because the initial was fueled by adrenaline and panic, there was an immediacy to accessing the platform as a vehicle to still have connection with performers and with the public and still make some sort of work. And that was kind of, I'd say, April, maybe the start of May.
Right.
And then as the dominoes continue to topple, the realization of what was happening to our industry and how some of it was irreparably damaged, that adrenaline was kind of replaced with a sort of bleak despondency and depression. It was really, really a difficult time because, as I said, we had no way to exercise those demons that we carry, but we had no control of anything. So I for a while, I tried to keep on exercising. I tried to create a level of structure to help me navigate what I could see was this spiral. And yeah, so that was kind of the next stage, was leaning into the grief and just knowing, and actually, I think part of being a person who has mental health issues, who suffers from poor mental health, part of that process is actually acknowledging that you are in a cycle of it.
I think what I'm hearing is a sort of a not trying to deny
precisely
the emotional. It's like, because I am not knocking going for walks and self-care and some of those things. It is, obviously they are, but sometimes people can see them almost as a replacement for the emotional self-care that also needs to happen. And part of that is just, well, I was going to say acknowledging what's going on, but sometimes you're not even conscious of what's going on until later.
That's true.
That's precisely. That's like saying, how do you, that's because we're operating on several layers of consciousness and unconsciousness all the time.
Precisely. So I think living with that for a while, was a period of inactivity, not being productive, but also what happened wasn't just for me and other performers, but institutions as well were able to pivot to commissioning work from performers and asking them to put it online. And I think I had this real kind of dichotomy, this fight with, this is not my platform, this is not my vehicle. I really just want to hold on for theatre to get back, which is kind of counterintuitive, but it was just kind of a lot to process. So like the next thing I was supposed to go to after Pandora and the debut of the new show passed and Great Arias passed, the next thing in my schedule was Bayreuth, to go back and do Tannhäuser, and then that got cancelled. But what's really interesting about going back to do Tannhäuser is it was a very difficult situation 2 years ago when the show debuted, and there was kind of international furore around it, around racism and bullying and homophobia, and me receiving all these things at a level that I've never had before. And so up until that point,
you know, because opera fans are really mean. That's why.
Oh well, they
opera fans can be. I'm like Bayreuth, like global opera fans.
Oh my, well,
stratospheric, you know.
Oh yeah, I mean, just ridiculous. Like, there was a guy who wrote an article that literally was gaslighting my experience. He wrote the article from Sydney. He wasn't there. He wasn't actually, and I'm like, anyway. So, but because with everything falling away, I was like, oh well, at least I've still got Bayreuth. In that level of dysfunction, I was hanging on to something that was really kind of injurious to me. And then that fell away.
Yeah, that's like, oh, I can't go swimming, but at least I've got the shark tank come out.
Precisely.
It's swimming, right?
Exactly. And so I think I stopped kind of engaging with performance. My producer, Jared, sort of then became a tap, a kind of middleman between me and commissions, saying he just knew that I wasn't great mental health wise.
Like a filter, like a gate filter. Not quite a gatekeeper, but
yes.
Filter,
and then he only recommended things that he thought I would be willing to do, I was able to do. So I didn't do anything till I believe it was August. It was August. I did something in August. I did something for Edinburgh Festival, and then I made a thing with Unicorn Theatre, Rumpelstiltskin. But yeah, it was. I think it's such a kind of quagmire. So there's so much to navigate.
And another person, so another bit of work. We've got some images. Is that you were going to do. That you were going to do a Christmas show with Home, is that right? And that also went online. So Ducky.
Yes, Ducky. Yes, so Ducky is a show that I made with my nieces in mind. It was so important for me. It was born really organically. I was performing at a variety show, and I didn't realize that the audience of the variety show was a third kids in the front. And my material isn't, I am not kid friendly, but it was just interesting to respond to that. So I took my heels off and I went off stage and I had a conversation with them. And, you know, as we said at the start, drag is the ability to meet the moment. So there I was having a conversation with kids, and it was a really kind of magical moment. And the next day, the artistic director, Anthony Roberts, called me and said, look, I think you should make a kids show. I've got some money for you, do some research and development. And that's where the seeds of Ducky was born. And I wanted it to be the sort of, I wanted it to tackle some of the issues that I face and that I knew my nieces were facing, because my niece was born here, but lived in Nigeria till she was 3. Then she came back to England And at school, because kids are just curious. She were curious about her nose shape, her hair texture. And so it became important to somehow gift her some empowering tools that told her these things were going to happen, but she was enough. And so Ducky is a story of that. Ducky is about a duck born into the zoo, and we kind of navigate racism, bullying, body shaming, homophobia. But it's in this Ugly Duckling version of the Ugly Duckling, Ducky doesn't become a swan. Ducky becomes the best version of himself.
Yeah.
Because for me, that was a dangerous fairy tale element of the Ugly Duckling story, is that because you go through some adversity, you are gifted transformation or better, and that's not the truth.
But also, and that your transformation actually then means that you transcend, that you become part of the mainstream, and which is actually
precisely. And the truth is, some of us, regardless of what we do, will never meet that transformation.
Well, and it's a full setup in the first place.
Exactly.
Yes, and I have to say, I cried, and it was just the trailer, and then I read somewhere that it's like, this is the show that I really wish I had seen growing up, and I was like, and I was whimpering, going, I wish I had seen. I think I maybe need to see it now. Still,
it's had the most extraordinary response from kids, but also from parents. I think it's so important,
precisely because those aren't the messages I grew up on. I'm in my mid-50s. I was all like Heidi and Little Women, and give it up for the saints and suffer.
Yeah. And I mean, I suppose the reason why the year became more complicated, as well as, the loss of work, was the international platforming of the conversation around race, with what happened with George Floyd, and how the whole world, because we were in a forced stop, because normally that sort of headline might fizzle away after 2 weeks, but because the whole world had paused, there was actually space for this to percolate and bubble.
Yes, I absolutely, I think the whole phenomenon that, and it was, it was a powder keg and ready to go. But I'm going to just ask one more question, and we're going to have one more clip, and then we'll move But talking about, so the online space, as we've just talked about, you've talked about dichotomy all the way through, that the urge to perform is a blessing and a curse. A level of self-awareness is fantastic, and also can lead to sort of an introspection and difficulty. And I guess we've talked about the upside of your online community, everybody responding so fantastically to your Facebook Live, you having nurtured your community online in terms of socials. And then you got some emergency funding from the Arts Council. And
Lord.
We saw a different side of the media, both social and, the fourth column media. Tell us as much or as little as you want to about that, because I can only imagine it's been it was absolutely sort of
it's so interesting. It was an extraordinary experience because but not new. So like how institutions and people had the black square on Instagram with Black Lives Matter and all of that very quickly gets shoved away when people want to lean into their racism. And what was interesting about what happened there was I had litigated my race and my identity last year with Bayreuth, and I had to do it again this year nationally because I was successful with some culture recovery fund. And I didn't read the article, but my friends, because I closed down my Twitter, I had to, from all the racist, homophobic abuse that was just a deluge it was nonstop. My friends messaged me just to kind of check in, and Bourgeois Maurice sent a message going, you know, I think, having read the Daily Mail article, that you are an intersection of hate. And as difficult as that is to hear, it is the currency that you need to understand, because in the article, they centralize the fact that I'm gay, I'm a drag queen, Nigerian. Look, so they other me so entirely that they devalue any quality or negate what I do. And they actually never lean into the truth. The truth being, the Arts Council and the government funds and money, they don't work like a cash machine. You don't walk up to them and say, that's how much I want and get it. This is my 9th, I think between my 9th and 12th bit of support with the Arts Council. You have to have a track record. It was written by 7 people. It is to support 7 shows.
But
Pandora
I mean,
was going to be with the Manchester Camerata Orchestra. It was going to be with Mike Walker, who's a Tony Award and Olivier-Award winning sound designer. The designer for the show is Tom Scott, who's a Tony Award nominated. David Shrubsole, who I met at the National. That is just one show. There were 7 shows, and it was about scaffolding all this work so that I could support as many self-employed artists that I was doing before lockdown happened. But that narrative those facts didn't suit the narrative, so the truth never came out in how the story was reported.
And I think one of the things that for me was quite hateful was actually, it could have been, you know, I mean, of course they personalised and othered you, you're exactly right, but actually their wider agenda is because it was an Arts Council bashing agenda, you know. It's like, oh, they give it to this chap, and then there's there's a comedy club down it was a man in the pub argument, comedy club down our road didn't get anything, but that guy did.
Precisely they just sensationalised this.
You become collateral damage in an ongoing war against institutions that certain papers think are too liberal. Sorry, you didn't mention it, and I hate to bring it up, but of course you're fat as well, which in the Daily Mail is probably the biggest crime of all.
Oh no, that is
too thin,
that is the intersection of hate. All those things,
totally,
like
all those things.
The choices of pictures that they use in the Daily Mail, and then Nick Ferrari was talking about it. Someone else on Talk Radio, someone else on YouTube, and I was like, because when I logged my account the day before, it wasn't. The perfect storm hadn't been whipped up yet. By the next day, it was on all these platforms because and it's so interesting that some of them were arguing that I got the money from being Black and gay and fat. And that is precisely what they were capitalizing on to get sensational clicks for their websites and the story. It's like, guys, what? And no one engaged with the quality of the work. Last year, I was able to tour Ducky around the country to some places that I would not have been able to go to. I played in libraries. I played somewhere in Milton Keynes. I played Bath, and all of this, because with a company called House and the Arts Council and Something to Aim For, we centralize the importance of this message. And I literally, that's part of the engagement program from the Arts Council. The proof is there. Just Google. There's a freedom of information request that you can put
but that
into the Arts Council to get this. And I mean, people, I was so, I mean, I wasn't shocked by it, but some days I got a message from a guy at 5 something a.m. And I was like, apart from the fact that none of this has any truth in it, it is 5 a.m. So you're either waking up and going to work, or you're coming back from a night shift, or you've been clubbing, and everything that's going on in your life and going on in the world, you've made enough space to hate me enough to pop online and search me and send me this message. Guys,
no,
listen.
I've never understood that.
You don't make sense. It doesn't make any sense. This is stupid. This just doesn't make any sense. It doesn't. And that was like, I mean, I was like, so like you're brushing your teeth and you think, oh, that drag queen in Brighton, oh.
No, I know. David Lammy once on Twitter, and we'll move on from this because it's not a nice subject, but David Lammy once on Twitter shared a piece of hate mail. He'd had stuff through the door.
I saw it.
And that, you know, it was all written with block capitals by a bloke called Stephen, because he went, it was foul what he wrote in it, but underneath it went, kind regards, yours sincerely, Stephen. And I was like, well, if anything proved that this man was a moron, you know, it's like, he says the most hateful things, and then he thinks, oh, I'll sign off the letter in the traditional manner. Kind regards, yours sincerely. I just couldn't, the sort of madness of it didn't. But like I say, that's, and I'm guessing that one of the things that kind of, the flip of that again is that whatever time you needed to take, that you had your community. We've got a clip coming up of another of your commissions. But actually, Gareth, I wonder if we could, just because it's going to, I think, slightly suit where we're going in the conversation a bit more, is we can skip that one and just go to the things that you nurtured that helped you get through lockdown, breakdown. Lockdown, breakdown.
No, Freudian, yes. Absolutely.
Was your houseplants.
Indeed.
So tell us a little bit about the things that you nurtured and how that might have helped.
I'll tell you something about houseplants or plants in general, or I think taking on a pet, anything that actually depends on you to survive, means that you have to come out of yourself to care for it. And so it was an absolute, actual life-saving joy adding houseplants to my routine, to my life, because watching them grow from like seedlings and cuttings to kind of adorning this space was so, I didn't realize how important that was. It was so important because, you know, one leaf is turning brown, especially with this fern. This fern is so melodramatic. It's like, oh my God, I'm too hot. What's going on? So you have to pay attention, and that level of care has meant that you actually have to come out of yourself to care for them. So I built, and along with my online community on my Facebook page especially, we started talking about different plants. I would often do some cuttings of the ones that I'd grown and send them to people for free to start their collection, because I think it was so, one of the things that I know that Boris spoke about this yesterday, and I know that there have been periodic kind of chats about it, but I think governments have to collectively platform the reality of having to engage with the collective mental health of this sort of mass grief, because we are so anti-habit, anti-human at the moment in terms of intimacy and 2 meters apart and restrictions on everything. And people have lost people and not being able to bury them and not being able to say goodbye. So, and that is kind of what my Facebook and my Twitter became, was to just go, hey, I'm just checking in. I hope you're okay. But I'm hoping that the responsible adults in the room recognize that we are going to have a national conversation about our collective mental health and what this pandemic has done to all of us. Yeah,
I think this, Jung would call it the collective unconscious, has been massively, I think, affected, and how, and everything that manifests because of it. We're going to go to questions in a minute. I'm actually, if Gareth will allow, sorry, I've taken things out of order, and he schedules things so beautifully. I think it might be nice to finish on some work. Another piece of work that you were commissioned, you mentioned it a moment ago, and that's And again, I can massively recommend this if you just want to watch something. We're going to watch a little bit of a piece of work you made for the Unicorn Theatre. This was nominated for an Olivier-Award.
Yes, indeed.
Best online content. With the spoiler alert, you'll know you already know what story it is, but let's watch this clip for the big reveal. Don't forget to put your questions, as Shirley's just said, into the chat, and we'll be going straight to questions after we've heard a little bit about this. Thanks, Gareth.
One more day and then she'll see the royal child belongs to me. Water, earth, and air, and flame. Rumpelstiltskin is my name.
I'll tell you something. Making this show with the Unicorn and Rachel Bagshaw, who is the director, making this show, we made it in a COVID secure environment at the Unicorn Theatre in September. And because we were so starved of work and being as creative as we normally would do, it was a sort of time capsule stop of magic where we literally poured out everything we've been holding. We just wanted to throw everything at it. It was like everything that we could, because we knew from, at 6 p.m. when the day, I think we filmed from 10 till 6, at 6 p.m. it was back to...
Yeah, the shutters were going down and that was that.
The shutters were going down and, Rumpelstiltskin was going back into the book as opposed to living and breathing. So yes, it was really wonderful, but also really emotional because it was a reminder of what the magic is, and heartbreaking because we knew at 6 o'clock we had to pack our bags and go back to...
And I know that we've been talking about the difference between live and online performance, or live and the sort of virtual, but actually that emotion really communicates. And for the first time, I think, I've known the story for years and I hadn't remembered it completely. But actually, for the first time, I really thought about the story from the way you told it. I really thought about the story from the point of view of the little girl.
Yeah.
I've never really thought, and actually it's a tale about survival.
Absolutely.
It's a tale about survival and how you have to know evil. I think, actually it really made me think about that story in so many other levels and what it's...
It made me think about this. When I was discussing this with Rachel, the director, we had a really wonderful chat before the day. We had 2 chats about the work. Is no one in Rumpelstiltskin is good. No one.
Nobody carves themselves with glory. Nobody's wreathed in
glory.
glory.
The father's trying to pick her off. The king, there's no one. No one. So. Yeah.
Okay, so moving now to questions. I've got some here that Shirley and Lara have kindly sent to me. So actually, first is more of a comment than a question, but it is lovely, so I wanted to share it. So Denise Greenan, thank you. I think this is to you because she's never met me. I adore you, and your posts about plants, your check-ins and funnies have truly kept me going and brought me such light in hard times. Purple heart.
Oh, bless her.
I thank you, and I hope you have found light from us in return to comfort you in this storm. We're all in the same storm, but in different boats, right?
That's God, that's a little bit emotional.
Lovely, isn't it? Thank you. So thank you, Denise. That is really
Thanks,
lovely.
Denise. That's really, really lovely.
Naomi Godfrey. Is Ducky still available to watch anywhere? It sounds wonderful.
Not at the moment. And interestingly, just to give you further insight into your question, part of the Arts Council support, the Cultural Recovery Fund, was actually to franchise Ducky. So to make a version that was smaller, cast other people in it so that it could do school tours because of the message. But schools aren't open. It's going on much longer than anyone anticipated. So I might have to make a film version of Ducky, in which case that will be available in the future, but we're still weighing up all these things.
Yeah, lovely. Yeah, it'd be lovely to see. Yes, it sounds like and as you say, post, whatever post means, a message about the amount of time we've had to sort of be still and be contemplative, that to kind of go out into the world with that confidence would be great.
Absolutely.
Yestin Wynn.
Yes.
Hi, Yestin. I saw Gateau Chocolat's Icons a couple of years ago in Cardiff.
Oh.
And she changed the way I see myself and how comfortable I am to be myself.
Oh, God.
Wear what I want, sing what I want, when I want to, and more than anything, express my femininity without apologising. It isn't always easy, and I don't always stick to that, but I'm getting better at it.
Oh my God, you guys are too much with your comments.
I know.
Stop it.
Oh, but then he follows up with a question. Does Gateau have any upcoming virtual shows? I saw Gateau on the Icon show and she was amazing. P.S. I can't believe I missed those Facebook lives. And I think we put the link in for some of the old ones. So.
From some of the old shows, yeah, they're all on the Facebook page. What another thing that came out of my chats on Facebook were some really, really long form debates and chats. Like one of them was the extraordinary chat about the Mary Wollstonecraft statue, the unveiling of that, and how polarizing it was in terms of what it revealed and so many things. And so from that was an idea was birthed called Salon Chocolat, where we where it just wasn't a show, but actually a conversation where we platformed some issues that we wanted to talk about.
Yeah.
So that will be happening soon.
So Facebook page, best place to keep
Facebook page and
Twitter,
yeah.
Yep. Oh, sorry, my iPhone's full now. Now from some questions coming a bit thicker and faster now.
Yes.
Amy Telfer. I'm starting a new LGBT project starting in the spring, summer, involving photography and interviews. This is to discuss the stereotypes in the media we have grown up with. I need models and would love some advice on a project like this, please. Gateau.
Yes, send me a message to info@legaschocolat.com and we can have these conversations. I think there are lots of artists who are genuinely interested in collaborating on a project, especially photography projects, because then it becomes a symbiotic relationship and an exchange of talents. They get to have photos, you get to have subjects. So the first thing is to start curating the sorts of people that you want to photograph, and then composing an email, a kind of template, making sure that you don't send the wrong name to the wrong person. But there are lots of people who are very, very open to supporting your new craft. So yeah.
Brilliant. That's fantastic. Thank you. Question from Christina. Bayreuth audiences are weird. That's an understatement. Do you still plan to go back if and when the next festival takes place? Or are you kind of done with that?
This is it's a very good question, and it's a very interesting question, because this show, the making of this show, I met the director in 2015 and it debuted in 2019. It took 4 years to build to where we got to. Now, the truth is, it is so important that the message my identity presents in that show is platformed.
Right.
The difficulty is marrying what it triggers and you being that vehicle. I know that it's important that their echo chamber and their bubble is penetrated by this, because this happens and it's not going to change. It's just really difficult when you have to be the vehicle for that message.
This is a bit because I've kind of slightly want to protect you. It's like, I feel like you've done your turn, isn't it? Someone else's turn.
Yeah. So that's it's a rep for 4 years.
I really get it. I mean, it's as you say,
it's a responsibility.
It's the demand for you to be there, but it's the demand for you to be there.
an American woman said she watched it in the cinema, happened live. She messaged just out of the blue about watching the show. A queer non-binary, non-specific messaged me from Berlin, just going, I've never ever seen myself and I never imagined I would see myself in an institution like that. And so there is work to be done. It's just really, really hard when you're the vehicle to deliver that message. So the question in answer to that is, I think so. It's just I have to gird my loins and get really good M&S shapewear to keep me together.
Yes, I'm gonna take the question slightly out of order. We've got a few more, but this one actually follows on quite nicely. So your work spans high culture and pop culture.
Yeah.
So how do you marry populism with forms which can be like opera seen as elitist? And this is from Dan de Lamotte, who I think is going to be one of our panelists in a moment. But
how do I marry that? I think is to underline the through line through all of that is my humanity and yours, and to hold that it doesn't really matter. So, for instance, Pandora, which was supposed to be debuting in this year, in May last year, opens with Purcell's Music for a While, and then goes into Barbara Streisand on a Clear Day, both played by the Manchester Camerata Orchestra. I think it's the really glorious thing about music, especially in terms of high art and populism, is that without having to lean into my identity in terms of race or sexuality or size or whatever, we can have a common ground in music. There are things you will know, or there are things that I can say that are your language without having to embrace everything else. So I'm always very thrilled to lean into both, because that's where I live. My playlist will jump from Strauss to Natalie Cole to Kylie, and then back to Nina Simone, and all those have very important storytelling purposes.
There's quite a few now. I'm going to have to make a few hard choices.
I'll do quick fire.
Yes, okay. So this is Jazz Morton, who's one of our participants on Advantage. Hello, Jazz. Do you have any opinions on RuPaul's Drag Race? I'm curious as to whether televised media drag, almost undoubtedly a bit fake and a bit edited, might seem as less genuine or less the real thing than performance drag. She puts, my question seemed good when I thought of it, but it reads as a bit futile. I don't think it reads as futile at all. So let's expand it rather than make it necessarily. There's now a sort of mainstream culture bit of drag on the telly.
Yes.
Thoughts about that? Quick fire.
It's good. I think it's evolving the conversation. It is actually taking those identities into homes that maybe live performances couldn't reach, and that is kind of part of evolution to normalize that this is what people do and this is what people can do. So I've never actually seen a full season. I know some really wonderful people from it, like Courtney Act and Bianca, and they're really, really lovely, really, really supportive. Jinx Monsoon, we did some a duet together. They're wonderful people, and I think, like anything else, Britain's Got Talent, America's Got Talent, whatever kind of talent show, if you can, it's an audition. It's an audition.
It's a platform, isn't it?
That gives you an international platform.
Yeah, lovely. Two more, one really quickly from Caroline Moore. Are you still skipping Legato?
Hi, Caroline. What am I skipping? Chocolates. Caroline. So, Caroline, you know what I did? One of the things I've done, that's the best thing I've done in the last 5 years, is get a personal trainer. I added a personal trainer to my bubble. So I see my personal trainer 3 times a week. I'm seeing him today. Today's leg day at 1. So I haven't been skipping, but I've been squatting, lifting weights, riding the bike. Yeah.
Them
Girl,
lunges, right?
Get back skipping, Caroline. Get back.
Okay. Lest I forget, We're going to have one more question and then
Yes.
I'll do some thanks. But
Yes.
Gateau, if you can stay on
Yes.
after we've said goodbye, we're just going to amongst the panel. But I'm sorry for those of you whose questions we didn't get to. Apologise. But Hayden Cooper is, how do you have the confidence to be so flamboyant and fabulous? I am a non-binary, they said queen person, but I know queer, not queen, but if the shoe fits. I am a non-binary queer person and I struggle with being comfortable and expressing myself loudly and proudly. And I think that was a nice one maybe for you to give the last word.
What is the person's name?
Hayden.
Hayden, that's a very good, important question, and it's something that I struggle with. It's something that is not a definitive. There's no handbook. I think it just gets easier. Hopefully, gets easier. There's a line in Perks of a Wallflower that says, "We only accept the love we feel we deserve." I have such a dysmorphic relationship with myself in terms of trying to understand or contemplate that someone could love me the way that I look, the way that I am. But the truth is having to mine into the reality that this isn't a rehearsal, this is it. And you've just got to do it. I don't want to sound like a self-help book, but because some days are better than others. It's never I don't find it's gotten easier, especially when mine are physical, like I'm Black, I'm fat, I'm, visibly gay. It's just to lean into it. And I think the courage builds as you continue to lean into it. And I think I also find a lot of scaffold and support from a wonderful network, whether that's Facebook, whether that's my sister, whether that's my friend Johnny Woo that I make shows with, whether that's my producer from Tracy to Lauren to Jared, in all and that's one thing I've got to mention now, as regards the hate I got for the fund or from Bayreuth, is I know there are nameless, faceless people who face this every single day and don't have a shrapnel of the support that I have. I've been really, really lucky that I've been able to navigate all of it with people. And I know that people don't have that. So Jaden, what I'm saying to you is reach out and build a community. There's so many of us who are willing and able to hold you and say that you matter as well, your identity matters, and we will do this with you.
Yeah, and it's step by step, isn't it?
It's step by step. There's no kind of turning into the swan. It's embracing, it's the ducky story. It's embracing this, but there's so many of us who are willing to do this with you. So yes.
To go on the journey with you. Thank you so much. We are out of time. It's been,
yes.
carry on all afternoon. And you've got I know you're hanging on for now, but you've got your personal trainer at 1. So we had a little bit of the Little Mermaid right at the beginning. Heads up in our panel between 1 and 2. Here out for the backstory, the queer backstory of the Little Mermaid. Thanks to Lara and Chris, who are program curators of Hello Culture. It's always an honor to do these. I get to meet the most amazing people and speak to them, so that's been great. A big thanks to BBC Academy, because this is part of their Digital Cities virtual program. I think, it's been a real, again, that's been a highlight. One more next month, keep your eye out for that. Make sure you check out the Digital Cities virtual website. That will give you more information about other masterclasses that are happening later in the week. All sorts of things, skills, jobs, backstage peeks at how it all works. And there's more, as I say, at Hello Culture at lunchtime today. Chris Brown exploring how queer communities created online spaces to express their cultural lives. I think it's all sold out. If there are any spaces, there'll be a link in the chat. Thank you all very much. Thank you for spending your morning with us. I can't think of a better way to blow away the misty fog of this late January morning. Look at Gateau, it's just been a real pleasure.
Thank you, guys. It's been nice to talk to you. Thank you so much for having me, and to everyone for your wonderful questions.
That's it. That's it from us. Thanks a lot. Bye-bye.